Welcome to Primary Science with Miss Devita. In today's video, we're going to talk about flowering plants reproduction. Here are the focus questions that we're going to answer. The first one, why do the plants reproduce? And the second one, how do the plants reproduce? Look at the picture. It is a part of a plant. We call it as a flower. Flowering plants produce flowers for reproduction. To reproduce means to have young or offspring. As we notice that flowering plants reproduce, the question now is why? Why do the flowering plants reproduce? To answer this question, let's study this picture. This was wood cycad. What happened to this plant? It went extinct in the wild. The last known wild specimen died in 1916. Not only wood cycads. Another example of extinct animal was dodo bird. Dodo skeleton cast and model based on modern research at Oxford University Museum of Natural History. What happened to this bird? It's already become extinct. It is an extinct flightless bird that was endemic to the island of Mauritius, east of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. So back again to the question, why living things need to reproduce? Living things reproduce so that their own kind will continue to exist. Otherwise, they will die or eventually become extinct. Now we come to the second focus question, how these flowering plants reproduce? Flowering plants reproduce by using their reproductive parts, and these reproductive parts exist in their flowers. So now we're going to talk about flowers. This is a common part of a flower. Let's have a look at the picture. Yeah, and now we're going to talk about these parts one by one. Look at the picture. The first part of the flower that we're going to talk about is the stamen. Stamen is what we call with male parts. These consist of two parts, the anther and the filament. An anther produces pollen, which contains the male reproductive cells, and the filament supports the anther. Other than the male parts, a flower also have the female part, or what we call with pistil. The pistil consists of at least three parts. The first one is the stigma. Look at the picture. Stigma is a sticky surface that has a function to catch pollen. Down to the stigma we have the style. It is a long stalk which holds up the stigma. And down to the style we have the ovary. Ovary has one or more ovules. Each ovule contains the female reproductive cells, or what we call with ovum. The next part of a flower, this one is what we call with petals. Petals do not belong to either female parts or the female parts, but this exists in some flowers. Some flowers have bright colored petals, other flowers have dull colored petals, but petals may also absent in some flowers too. The presence of male and female parts of each flower might be different. Look at the picture. Hibiscus and lily plants have male and female parts in the same flower. But if you talk about pumpkin flowers, look at the picture. The male and female parts are found in separate flowers. So far we have noticed that flowers have the male and female parts. And then if the conditions were right, these male and female reproductive cells will join together and they will become the seeds. And the seeds will grow into a new plant. So later, we're going to talk further about this plant's reproduction as represented in this diagram. I would like to start with the word pollination. In pollination here is when the pollen transferred to the stigma. And then after pollination is the fertilization. And the fertilization here is when the male reproductive parts join together with the female reproductive parts, and then they will come to the next stage. It is the seeds production. And then so now the plant already have the seeds, and the seeds needs to be scattered. The seeds needs to be dispersed from the parent plant. After the seeds is being dispersed, it will go to the next stage. It is the germination. So the seeds will grow into a young plant, and then the young plant will grow into the adult plant and it's ready for the pollination, back again to the fertilization, then to the seeds production, back again to the seeds dispersal, and back again to the germination. So this is how they create the life cycles of a flowering plant. And here's a question that why I cannot see a flower of a flowering plant. Does every flowering plant must have a flower? Be careful. There are some situations that makes it possible for us not to see a flower of a flowering plant. Here's this one. The young plant will produce flowers when it's mature enough. So yeah, you cannot see any flowers in a young plant. We need to wait for some time until it is mature enough to produce the flowers. The second condition, adult plants do not produce flowers all the time. They produce the flowers when conditions are right. The third condition happens in telepod palm trees. These trees only bear flowers once in their lives, so we will be very lucky to see their flowers. This is the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on my next one.